Hey everyone, this is Zach at FF Chalupa Batman. This is the Triple Play Fantasy Beyond the Analyst interview series, episode 15 here. And I'm joined today by our first time, not officially, fantasy football analyst. We have actor and writer Mike Stoyanov. How's it going today, Mike?
Pretty good, Zach. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very pleased to be here. Your
Awesome.
opening credits got me super excited. It was like pre-draft analysis, rankings, and I'm like, oh, but we're not actually doing that. But I'm still excited to be here. Thank you.
We're going to save that for the rest of the team. But yeah, like you said, we're going to be talking about getting to know you, going beyond the analyst. So you are, like I said, an actor, writer. You're known for being on Blossom, Billions, The Dark Knight. You wrote for Conan O'Brien, Mr. Show with Bob and David, lots of other stuff. But I brought you on because, let's say, you were in Scott Fishbowl last year, I believe, for Scott Fishbowl 11. And you put out a lot of fantasy football takes. I know you don't think of yourself as a true analyst, but you love the game. So I want to have you on to let the audience get to know you a little bit more.
Absolutely. And in point of fact, I wasn't actually in the fishbowl, but I think we did come. I've seen a lot of takes on it, and I feel like I participated. And I'm trying to get in this year, but I wasn't in it. But we are acquainted through fantasy Twitter for sure.
God, okay. Well, hopefully
Scott Fishbowl 12. Hey, that guy, he's misrepresenting himself as a guy who was in Scott Fishbowl when he wasn't. Like, I don't want to make anyone angry.
No, yeah, I would say we connected around that time. So yeah, so
exactly.
Scott Fishbowl 12 is the year then.
I hope. I want in.
So how long have you been playing fantasy football?
Well, I'm a pretty old guy, so like I was playing at the outset, like in the early '90s. Like I remember like desperately wanting like Favre or like Emmitt Smith, or I remember Tuesday morning going and getting a USA Today, which was the best paper to like look at all the stats and make sure, and then having to call the commissioner and be like, "Hey man, Indianapolis had 3 sacks, not 2." And like to make sure the points were right. And yeah, it was wild back then. Like you had to be the first guy to call the commissioner to pick up a guy. Like there was no waiver wire. It was the Wild West back then.
So I can't imagine. I mean, I've heard lots of those stories of the pre-internet of fantasy football or fantasy sports where you're doing everything by pen and paper, calling your commissioner.
Yeah,
I can't imagine that, but
we would get a fax.
Yeah.
You get a fax of like the results, like on Wednesday or Thursday. And yeah, there would be like bitter disputes over like who the timestamp on a message to pick a guy up, or God forbid the commissioner would want to pick someone up. And he's like, "Oh, I already picked him up." And you'd be like, "Oh yeah, I bet you did. I bet you did." It's like, I just, like there would just be, it was mayhem. It was utter mayhem. And like, thank God for the internet. I believe it was, if not invented, it was certainly furthered greatly by fantasy's need for it. So like, you're welcome, internet. Like you're as big as you are because of us.
There you go. Yeah, I remember
drafting just as we had Fred Taylor, me and this guy, we shared a team. Fred Taylor, his rookie year, we were like, we got to get this rookie Fred Taylor. He's going to be big. Like, I don't know if you remember Fred Taylor. He had like a 12-year career and has been retired for like 15 years now. Like,
yeah, Jacksonville Jaguars.
Like a guy I remember having.
That's great. So, when I started, the internet was there, but the apps weren't really there. Like smartphones weren't a thing. So I remember being in school. I won't say what grade, but we had a computer. Like it was a computer class. And it was during when the waivers would run. So I would hop on real quick and pick up everyone else that I wanted for free that didn't go on waivers. And I had to make sure I did that. So the league didn't like that I had that advantage because they were at work. Mind you, I'm playing with adults, like dads in the neighborhood. And I'm like, I was like, I'm sorry that you're letting a 15, 16-year-old kid beat you.
That's hilarious. And also very sort of fantasy. Like no one cares. You're just an opponent. It doesn't matter your gender, your age, your species, even. Like, you could have been a Pekingese if you were like dominating. They'd be like, this guy.
Yeah, so that's great. Now, did you play any other fantasy sports or just football?
I've never really been like, to me, like I'll watch playoff basketball, and I'm from Chicago originally, so I had a big interest, not surprisingly, in the NBA, like in the 90s. Like in regard to like being interested in the regular season and following it, and like But that sort of waned. And I never had, again, those other like fantasy leagues, basketball and baseball, are just set up to be, they're just so all encompassing, and it goes on so long, and there's no head to head. It's just accumulating, points and stats. And I just have never had the sort of baseline like love for those games that would carry me through to like want to participate in fantasy. So I've really only ever been a fantasy football guy.
Yeah, I understand that. I tried basketball last year. It was fine. I mean, it was cool. Like I watch a lot of sports, not just football, but
Right.
I don't know. There's something about like the schedule of fantasy football. Like it's very like I know when waivers are gonna run. I know when the games
Right.
are. I know when practice reports are coming out. I know when injuries have to come out by.
It emulates the game itself much more so than the other ones, because again, it's the head to head every week, every Sunday you're playing just like they are, So I think it's just and it's just there's just way more, I think, and again, probably I'll catch some hell from baseball and basketball guys, but there's way more intensity of love for football, I think, and your team. It's like I liken it to like how international Europeans, South Americans feel about soccer. Like it's like that level of like zeal that I think is. And again, there are giant, super diehard baseball and basketball fans, but I think across the board, there's more of that in football.
Yeah, I think the money would tell us that fantasy football is probably the most popular fantasy sport between betting and then just fantasy in general.
I'm 100% sure that that's right. I mean, there's no doubt.
And now, so you're an actor, you've been a writer. Would you say that any of those skills correlate at all to playing fantasy football, or is it just completely separate?
I mean, it's definitely a stretch, but I did think about it when I saw the question. And I guess you could say that like writing, in particular comedy writing, there's a lot of science to it. There's a lot of like formulas, and there's a lot of sort of like, tried and true tested, like statistical data, if you will, that you can apply to comedy, like the rule of three. Like jokes tend to happen in threes, like a joke, and then the topper is generally how it works. A joke on a joke is something like formulaic that you shouldn't do. If you've made a joke and you try and make a joke off of the joke, it doesn't really translate, because most jokes need to be like come from a serious place of, and then that's where the funny happens. So like there's just little things like that would sort of lend itself to be like the analytics type guys, like that sort of thing. And then acting, for me, while there are like, strict method type people that are like, I only do this for me, it's always been like a whatever works for you. If whatever you do that makes you portray like realistically characters and people on screen or on the stage, you should do that. Don't worry about Meisner or any of the other Stanislavski, any of the other methods. Just do what is working for you. Like, and I think that sort of represents the sort of the like gut feeling type guys in terms of fantasy. And I feel like I personally am like a mix of both. Like I definitely respect stats and the analytics, although I do feel like the analytics and stats are amazing at telling you what has happened. But what we're all trying to do is guess what's going to happen. And no one has a crystal ball. Like the people, who loves people that say like, oh, I've got a system, I've got the stats, I can predict future outcomes. Who loves people like that? Bookies. Because they don't want to help you get rich. They want to help them get rich. So if you think you have a system based on the numbers, I mean, and again, I will absolutely acknowledge that there's an advantage there, definitely. And the more the better off you'll be. But I mean, I believe in looking at that stuff, and then I try and think about like, what's the team as a whole going to do? What about the eyes test on this guy? Like, what do I see when I watch this guy play football? Like, what has he done as a sort of a precursor to what he could or may do? Like that's why I get stuck sometimes on guys who, and I know I've gotten right into fantasy, and I know this wasn't what this was for, but I get stuck. I have a blind spot for guys who haven't done something and then suddenly do. Like Cooper Kupp has been very good, but like I had no way was I thinking he was going to be anything other than what he has been, sort of like top 12, somewhere between wide receiver 12 and wide receiver 25. So like, I didn't see that. Like, and kudos to all the guys that did, but like, that's my blind spot for sure is guys that come out of nowhere and do something that nothing in their history statistically has indicated that they were going to do or even capable of doing. Anyway, so yeah, there's definitely some correlations between writing and acting and fantasy football.
No, I think that's great. And like you're talking about, it's hard to predict. I mean, that's the name of the game. We're all guessing. And those level jumpers that you're talking about, I mean, you can throw out all the takes you want. You might get some of them right. You're gonna get plenty of them wrong.
Right.
So you can like go with your gut.
Yeah, if like it's just also like I would say just as a just be mindful of how you express yourself. Like I'm always willing if a guy like if there's an acknowledgement, like a tacit acknowledgement or like a subtextual acknowledgement that look, hey, this is a guess like anything else, but like these numbers that I'm looking at indicate this. But if you're like this is going to happen, and if you don't think that, then you're not doing it right. It's like you don't know, you just don't know. So. Again, I think it's a great community, and most guys are like really amazing, and I'm happy to be part of it.
That's awesome. No, I agree with you there. And you've been able to travel all over the world. So, do you have a favorite place that you've visited so far?
I mean, I've worked a lot in a lot of places. Like I've somehow managed to spend like almost a month in Paris, like on someone else's dime, which was great. I really enjoyed Budapest and Prague and like that sort of part of Europe. In terms of places I haven't been yet, I've not been anywhere in Asia, and I would love to go to Japan for sure, China as well. And yeah, I mean, I definitely would recommend travel in terms of like broadening one's horizons on every level, like mentally and spiritually and all that. I find it to be one of the great pursuits in life is if you have a disposable income of any amount, like think about like giving yourself an adventure in regard to going somewhere like fantastically new and different.
That's great. Now, I guess when you're looking at scripts or different work that you're deciding to do, does location play at all, or like, oh, like that's a really cool location, like sign me up, or I don't really want to go there?
Right. I mean, I'm not quite like at the level where it's like, look, I'm a hired gun, and like if I audition, that means I'm down to go like wherever, even if it's if it's not I don't get to pick and choose like like Pitt or Clooney or anything, but yeah, I mean something like I just read for something that shoots in Budapest, and I was like, oh, that would be amazing. Like I don't know, I'm just a guy like 8 or 10 other guys that they're looking at for that part, so like. But yeah, it's something I wish I could sort of pick and choose, but it doesn't really work out that way for me. And I haven't gotten to travel to as many places as I'd like. So, anyone out there who's like casting something, in Tahiti or, even Vancouver, I'll go where the job is for sure.
That sounds great. No, I guess I never really think about it of depending on how long the shoot is, like you could be somewhere for a long time or a short amount of time. And so it's definitely something to think about as you're.
Yeah, it's true. Generally for TV, you're likely to be there a pretty short time, a week or so. But if you manage to end up on a movie that's like, you could end up, 2-3 months traveling. Or like somewhere completely. My friend was in this movie, old friend of mine was in this movie, White Squall, a million years ago. It's like about sailing, and like he went everywhere. They were in like South Africa, and they were in like Australia, and it was just like month. And he was like, and it's not like an ensemble film, so he might have 5 or 6 lines through the whole 2-hour movie, but he's still there 3 months. You know what I mean? It's like the movie is set on a boat, and like so everyone needs to be there every day. Like even if you're just a guy who's in like written into 2 scenes and then maybe just basically in the background for most of it, like you are still there. You're still getting your per diem. You're still getting your weekly. So like, yeah, there's a lot of, you can really luck into like an amazing job. Like I'm sure there are guys who were in The Hobbit, in the Peter Jackson movies, that got to spend like 2 years in New Zealand that are like, you wouldn't even know, like one of the like orcs, one of the like the bald orc with the pointy ears who like was there, and sort of in the background and like, but he's not super memorable, but nevertheless, he made like $1 million literally and got to live in New Zealand for 2 years. So, that's our life. Or you sit on your ass, and do nothing but like hang out on fantasy Twitter for 2 years. Like it's a real either or scenario. It can be rough or it can be amazing. So
I guess to bring it back to fantasy football, it's kind of like the lottery ticket running backs you draft near the end, where you're hoping that there's an injury ahead of you and you lucked in, you got the lottery ticket.
And again, I never do that. Like, well, I'll try and like since Adrian Peterson, he was the one where it was like, wow, we should grab all these rookie running backs. You just never freaking know. And like that guy was just so dominant. And then like, I remember the era of like for the first at least 15, 20 years, like Randy Moss sort of broke the mold for rookie wide receivers, because before him, it was like, why would you draft a rookie wide receiver in redraft? Like they never do anything. It takes too long to learn the curve. The team doesn't trust them. They're not going to see any targets. It's like, and that was true. That was generally true. Like a rookie had never had like a wow, like year like that. And then Moss came along, and then you're like, you know what? We should grab these rookies because you never, the next Randy Moss could be out there. So I usually, and for a while, that was still the sort of alt theory. You know what I mean? People were still grabbing these guys like journeymen or like, somewhere in like wide receiver 30 to wide receiver 50. I'm like, I'll take a shot on these rookies. Like no one's grabbing, but now everyone's wised up thanks to fantasy Twitter and like all the incredible analysis. Everyone knows to get all the rookies. So it's not like a secret field day you can have anymore. So I rue that. I regret that's come to pass. Everyone's smart now, thanks to the internet. When it was the USA Today on Tuesdays, it was only like nuts, diehards like me, like that would have that edge of like, oh, I've actually found something that no one else knows. Now everyone knows it because, Jamie Eisenberg or Matthew Berry tells them. And it's like, oh, fuck. Like, thanks. Thanks for telling all the other 9 guys in my league. Now everyone knows. Everyone's crazy for Breece Hall. Like, great. Now I will not get Breece Hall for sure. And he'll probably have an amazing year.
Very true. Very true.
Sorry, I love talking about fantasy. I know you didn't want to, but like I have to.
No, it's all good. I'm enjoying this. And now you've been in the entertainment industry for years as an actor, as a writer. So part of that industry is facing a lot of rejection. Like you said, you don't get every single part you try out for. And there can be a lot of rejection trying to make it in the fantasy industry as well. So do you have any advice for handling rejection and not giving up?
I mean, I would just say that like in any field where like there's going to be a lot of sort of discouraging, a lot of people saying no. I mean, you've got to stay at it, and you've got to be your own biggest fan. You got to be your own biggest sort of source for like confidence boosting, because there'll be plenty of times when no one else is out there like telling you, yeah, man, keep at it. Like, don't be discouraged. And then also in terms of like specifics, just make sure like, if you're trying to sell fantasy content or sell yourself, like know your audience. Know, like if I go in to read for like, the next Batman movie with like a sitcom-y, like really broad, like comedy, like sort of like take there, that's going to be a solid no. Like, but if I go in the next week and read for like Curb Your Enthusiasm, like that energy is appropriate. Like if you're like looking to like hook on with a site that's like, they want data crunching, they want like serious sort of numbers, don't like show them a super jokey article you wrote about tight ends. Like show them the right thing. And that's just going to like, that's just going to cut down on the potential rejection. Like if you are smart about it and you like, you understand, it's the same. It's like sales. It's like know who you're selling to, know your customer, like, and that's just definitely, I would imagine it would be important if you're trying to hook on. and like get your content seen like on a site, or just know what where you're at.
That's great advice. I appreciate it. And that was the last of we'll call them the serious questions. I have some rapid fire questions if you're game.
Let's do it.
Cool. So it's going to be a one-word answer if you want, or you can add as much context to the answers as you'd like.
As you can tell, I'll probably add some context.
No worries. So you were dopey on The Dark Knight. So who is your favorite Batman villain?
I mean, it's got to be Joker. Like I'm a traditionalist, I guess. He's the most well conceived and like deepest, and like he's got the pedigree in terms of in the movies like Nicholson and Ledger, and then Joaquin Phoenix winning the Oscar. Like it's just the most fully realized of the villains. Although I will say, I just started watching the new one, and the two villains in that one, I don't want to spoil anything, I think is actually a startlingly like chilling take on one of them. And I don't know if you've seen the movie, but you know who I'm talking about. It's like, wow. Because that one was a character in the 60s TV show, and it was like Cornball City. It was like so hokey. But like this take in the Batman, you're like, wow, that is disturbing. That is. I've only seen him halfway through, but like, so I've got respect for that, but it's got to be the Joker.
Fair enough. And a little sidebar, I can't imagine how fun that was to be on set for that.
That was an amazing couple weeks for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Even though I'm literally the first person killed in the movie. I disarm the burglar alarm up on the roof, and then I get shot in the back. I got a few lines in though, so like, and again, that's like just such a iconic like credit to have. So I was very happy to be in that film for sure.
And it's an amazing opening scene to, I mean, any movie, but especially a superhero movie.
Yeah,
like
really
what a
good.
cool opening scene.
Yeah, we could do a whole show on like that whole experience. Like you didn't really know what you were auditioning for, and like they didn't, because my character wears a mask the whole time, but that wasn't the audition material. So like it's a tiny bit disappointing to discover that you're not, I still have dialogue, I still have lines, but no one ever sees my face. But like, yeah, there's a lot that went on with that was amazing. Like Heath Ledger was really, really, it was amazing watching him work. And then like the person he was like a lot of these giant stars, like and super talented people, I find are very introverted, very sort of quiet, and like inner, like turned. And it was just a great experience.
Oh, that's awesome. So my next one's gonna be a little more funnier. What two animals would you like to switch the sounds that they make?
Let me see. I guess like a silverback gorilla and a kitten. I just think that would be a blast.
That kitten would be so intimidating, and that gorilla would not be intimidating anymore.
Most terrifying, like physical, like animal I could, and then with the cutest, like littlest sound. So also, it'd be like a kitten that sounded like a silverback gorilla would be interesting too.
Yeah, no, that's hilarious. I like that one. So you had a 2-line role on an episode of CSI, and your role was Man with Potatoes. So what role had your favorite name?
I don't remember that. I mean, I remember being on CSI, and I remember I had like taken like a hiatus sort of from the business. So I hadn't worked in a couple years, and I was looking to sort of claw my way back. And I went in and read for this very small part. And it was like, I was supposed to be like the announcer at like what's the word? Like a black market, not a black market, but like a drag or dune buggy race or something, and I was doing the commentary. I don't remember that they called me Man with Potatoes, but that's hilarious. What was the question though again?
What was your favorite, I guess, character role name that you've had?
I mean, Man with Potatoes has got to be way up there. That's pretty good.
And maybe that wasn't the official name, but you were in an interview with Mayim, your co-star from Blossom, and that's when you mentioned it. So
did I say that I played Man with Potatoes?
Yeah,
I think that used to, when I was in theater school in college, like that was a joke. Like when you were in the play, like a big play that had like street scene or like Oklahoma, and you were in the chorus.
Yeah, just a generic
Man with Potatoes, like because you didn't have a real part. It's like when you're in second grade and you played a tree in something because they ran out of real parts. to give. But yeah, I played a character, Dealer Dave, in Justified. I thought that was a really fun character and a really fun part, and that was a funny name, Dealer Dave. He was a drug dealer, it turned out. So yeah, no surprise there. I guess that would probably be it, Dealer Dave.
Awesome.
I've had a lot of really
one mammoth
Tobe, of course. That was fun.
Cool. Awesome. And now, if you could spend a day and hang out with any athlete, dead or alive, who would you want it to be?
No, I don't. That's crazy. That's I mean, I guess someone historically important like Jesse Owens or Jackie Robinson like come to mind. I've always been a big fan of boxing. Maybe like Jack Dempsey or some like really old timey guy like from that era, and that like Sugar Ray Robinson. Like that would be interesting. Like I don't know. That's a really crazy good question. What do people usually say? Have you asked that before?
Normally I ask celebrity, but I felt like since you were coming from the other side, I was like, oh, let's go with athletes since you're not in the sports world.
Right. I don't know. That's kind of, I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess to spend a day to hang out with, like, who would I would love to have, like, be in the dugout and watch like Billy Martin have like one of his tantrums, or like, I don't know. That's a good one. Like, yeah, I'm going to stick with like Robinson or Owens. Like, just,
awesome.
I imagine I'd be fascinated by their lives.
No, I like that. Going old school. And then, do you have a favorite type of fantasy football league, like setting, like dynasty, redraft, any kind of scoring?
2 QB. I play in I play in 3 home leagues only, and 2 of them are 2 QB. And I mean, I guess that would be Superflex is pretty much the same thing. I've never played in a Superflex league, but I would, and I would definitely take the approach that I would want that Superflex spot to be a QB. Like, I mean, redraft, and I'm in an auction keeper league, which I really like. I've never done a dynasty league. I feel like I'd give it a shot. It just seems like what I get from Twitter is like some people are just like the whole fun for them is just rebuilding for some like future date far in the future. I'm like, well, don't you? Or it's like I'll see a trade and it's like, oh, I traded this, and this for like a bunch of draft picks, and I end up thinking like, well, couldn't you maybe have won though with those guys? Like, why? Like that sounds like a team that could have won it all. Like, why would you? Like everyone seems like they're in such a hurry to unload the present for the future. So, I mean, I like a keeper league. We keep 4 guys, which definitely is a core, but it's not like you still play to win every year. Like, so I don't know, but yeah, I like half point PPR. Generally, I prefer to none or full. I like snake draft. It's old school. It's fun. I like auction a lot. 2 of the leagues I'm in are auction leagues, and I like that a little better, I think, just because you can really pick. You know, I'm a believer in terms of auction. For any auction guys out there, like you gotta pick the blue chip guys. Just pick 2 or 3 and resolve to get them no matter what. Because I guarantee you, if you set a budget, you're going to end up with a whole team of like mid-tier guys. You won't get any of those blue chip guys because your budget, you'll always be thinking, I got to get them like this at this super cheap, and it just won't happen. Like, decide you want a guy. Like, I was lucky enough to decide I wanted Jonathan Taylor like last year, and I got him, and like that was pretty key to winning the whole thing. Like, so you just gotta, I mean, some guys disagree. They're like, no, you got to set budgets and you got to have like a range and then like be like fluid. Like, yes, be fluid, but if you want a couple blue chip guys on your team, you got to just decide, you know, and commit.
No, that makes sense to me. That was my last question I had for you. I appreciate your time. Can you tell everyone where they can find you and maybe anything you got going on?
Absolutely, and thank you, Zach. This was a lot of fun. I'm at Mike Stoyanov on Twitter, and I think the same on Insta. No space, no underscore, anything like that. Yeah, follow, don't. I'll see you out there on fantasy Twitter. Like, we'll argue, we'll discuss stuff. Like, let's do it. But yeah, at Mike Stoyanov.
I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. So this is Triple Play Fantasy. Make sure you go ahead, like, subscribe, whether you're on podcast or on YouTube.
Subscribe, people.
Appreciate it. And then, like I said, go ahead and make sure you follow the rest of our content. We have football content, but we also have basketball, baseball, all of it here with Triple Play Fantasy. So thanks again for tuning in. Have a good day, guys.